sisters in here. Pastor Bob's not here tonight, but his son Luke is, so let's welcome him up.
Howdy. How's everybody doing? Fantastic. Well, I was just watching the Seattle Seahawks game versus the Cleveland Browns. My dad called me up. It's like, Luke, I need you to teach tonight. It's like, what's going on? It's like, well, I'm leaving to India and I need to hang out with my wife and write a bunch of devotionals and a bunch of other stuff, so I'd appreciate it. It's like, alright. So, Seahawks lost in overtime. It's depressing. But life goes on. So, my name is Luke. I've been going to this church since I was 2 years old. My dad moved up here from California and started this church back in the day. And it's just been amazing to see what God has done. For those of you who don't know, I was a youth pastor here for 5 years. From 18 to like 23, and then I've been just traveling and doing stuff in a band since then, and really just desiring to serve God with my life and just share His Word with people across the country and people whose hearts need to hear about Him. So that's really the gist of who I am. And tonight I just want to, it was kind of last minute, and I was just praying, Lord, what would you have me to share, tonight, and what do you guys need to hear tonight from the Lord? And the one thing that God really just impressed upon my life is that we have one life to live. And so I just want to talk about that tonight. Is just the fact that our life is short, and God has a plan and purpose for each and every one of us. And I know this is stuff that all of us have heard a lot of times, but I think it's something that we really need to just stop and evaluate and continue to look at in our own lives. So let's just bow our heads and open up in a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for tonight. God, we just thank you for who you are. We thank you for the time of worship, God, and we just thank you that you are a God that is great, that is greatly to be praised, and that you're worthy of our worship, you're worthy of our lives, you're worthy of all that we are, God, and all that we have. And I just thank you so much for each and every person who's here tonight. And I just ask, God, that you would just open up our hearts and our minds to just hear from you, God, that we wouldn't just do this as a tradition, God, or a religion, Father, but that we would truly just allow you to speak to our hearts, God. And I know that it has to be your Spirit, Father. So we just pray, Father, that your Spirit would just come and inhabit this place, God, that you use your word to just speak to each one of our lives, God, just to challenge us, to encourage us, and just to ultimately help us draw closer to you, Father. So we just thank you so much for who you are, and we just ask that you would be with us now in your precious and your holy name. We all agree together and said, Amen. All right, so we've got one life to live. I know when I was a kid growing up, the question that I always got asked was, what are you going to be when you grow up? And my answer was always like, I'm going to be a professional athlete. And I don't know if you guys have ever said that, but I had a lot of confidence in that. And I'll tell you why. I'm not very athletic, as you can probably tell, but growing up, I thought I was, and I was that kid in the front yard who was doing wind sprints and had my mom timing me, and I was always, in the rain, working on my free throws in the backyard, just doing whatever I could to excel in sports. And it's kind of silly thinking back on it, but I was very passionate about being as good as I could be in different things. And I remember specific times very often in my life where I'd be sitting outside and it was coming down rain. I'm all by myself, just dribbling the ball, looking at the basket. It was 8.5 feet anyway, so it was pretty funny. But I just remember saying, Lord, if you want me to be in the NBA, seriously, right now, just let me make the shot. And shoot it, and I'd miss and be like, that wasn't the Lord, that wasn't the Lord, that was yourself, just hearing things. And then about a half an hour later, I'd be, is that you, Lord? Are you speaking to me right now? If you make the shot, Luke, you're going to the NBA. I was like, come on, Caldwell. And just boom, switch. And I was like, there you go. It's the Lord's will. It's His plan for my life. Go tell my parents. I really feel like God's calling me, to be a professional athlete for His glory. And, it's just one of those things when we're growing up, you just really never really know what what life is going to be like. And, I'm 28 years old. I've been married for 5.5 years, and I feel like my life is like over. It's so weird how fast life goes. And I tell my wife this all the time, it's like depressing. I'm like, wow, I just can't believe how fast my life is going. And that same question, like, what are you going to do when you grow up? People are still asking me a question. Like, I have no idea. I'm grown up, aren't I? Like, I don't have a real job. Like, I travel around the country, like, live in a bus. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I feel like I'm doing what God's called me to do. And sometimes life can be that way. And I know, especially, when you're in high school and college, you just often feel that way. Like, God, what is the direction that, you have for my life? What is really your plan, your purpose for this life that I'm living? But ultimately, we do know this. And open up with me to James chapter 4. James is like hardcore at all times. If you ever want to get convicted, just read this book. Verse 13 of chapter 4, it says, "Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city, spend a year there, buy and sell, and make a profit. Whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and is then vanished away." That verse has always stuck out to me because I love how James just puts it in perspective and just says, look, this is the bottom line. You say, we're going to go do this, we're going to go do that, this is my plan, this is who I want to be, this is what I want to accomplish, this is what I'm going to make, this is who I'm going to marry, etc., etc. And he says, what are you talking about? He says, don't you know that your life is a vapor? And that you should rather say, if it's God's will, I'm going to do these things? Because that's the problem with our society and our culture so often, is that we want to decide what we're going to do. We want to say, this is what my life's intended to be. This is what I'm going to do. This is who I'm going to marry. This is the kind of money I'm going to make. This is kind of the house I'm going to live in. This is the kind of life that I'm going to lead. And we kind of make this decision. A lot of times it can happen when you are young. When you're, junior high or high school, you have this, I'm going to be a doctor. It's done. I'm going to be it. I don't care what I have to do, And we make up our minds and we just go. And that's all we do. And I think that the scary thing that can happen is that, honestly, like James says, he says, we can't just say, this is what I'm planning on doing. I'm going to go to this city. I'm going to make this kind of money. I'm going to hang out with these kind of people. Because God works in mysterious ways. And God's ways are not our ways. And I really, truly believe that we as Christians, if we're following Him and we want to know His will and His plan for this one short life that we're living, that He says is just a vapor. And you think about a vapor, it's like a blink of an eye. You blink your eye right now, like that is quick. And yet we're so consumed with these things. Like He says, traveling, making money, being comfortable. And, I'm the first to admit, like, those are all great things. It's fun to do. It's fun to just live a, life that's relaxing and travel the country and make some money and whatever. Those are all things that I'm sure most of us would say that I wouldn't mind, having or doing any of those things. But the thing is that can't be our purpose. That can't be our drive. And that's the one thing that verse really does to my own life, is it just makes me stop and say, Luke, what are you living for? Like, seriously. Your life is a vapor. Who are you? What is your call? What are you going to do? What is your legacy going to be? Are you going to have a legacy at all? What are people going to say about your life? What is God going to say about your life when you see Him face to face? Who are you going to be when you stand before Him? Are you going to be a person who made a bunch of money? Who, going to be a person who, whatever it might be, you fill in the blank. It's so many different things that, dreams or aspirations or whatever you might have. And I'm not saying that those are bad things, but ultimately, when you know that life is short and you know that we have to take this life seriously, I really think that you end up living it a little bit differently. It's kind of like Mario Brothers. I'm not a huge gamer,